S-400. Once a symbol of an empire's power, this famous shield was presented to the world as a show of force by the Kremlin. With a range of up to 400 kilometers, this system, claimed to be capable of hunting down even stealth aircraft, was touted as a technological marvel piercing the sky. When it was sold to Turkey in 2017, it caused seismic shifts in world politics and plunged a strategic dagger into the heart of NATO. Dubbed Putin's masterstroke, this sale was the Kremlin's most audacious message to the West. We are good enough to protect even your skies. But now the tables have turned. The system that was once a source of pride has now become the Kremlin's greatest embarrassment. Moscow was forced to turn to Ankara's door and whisper, "We want to take back the missiles we sold you." This is not just a trade, but an open admission of military defeat, technological bankruptcy, and one of the greatest strategic retreats of our time. And behind this dramatic break lies Ukraine's extremely cleverly designed, asymmetric, and highly accurate attacks. Russia had approximately 55 to 60 S-400 battalions in its pre-war inventory. Each battalion had an average of 8 launchers, associated 92 N6E multifunction radars, 91 N6E early warning radars, and command and control centers. This meant a massive network consisting of hundreds of launchers, dozens of radars, and command vehicles. On paper, this structure formed one of the world's most dense and integrated air defense networks. Despite its limited resources, Ukraine targeted the S-400 and launched a systematic hunt. Data, supported by visual confirmation from Oryx, shows that Ukraine has destroyed or disabled at least 5 full S-400 battalions to date. We are not talking about a single radar or launcher being hit, but about the complete dismantling of an entire battalion's integrated architecture, i.e., the complete removal of an air defense shield in a single area. Moreover, this toll is not limited to complete system losses. Critical components of many more batteries were hit with precision strikes. The loss of the 92 N6E radars rendered the batteries virtually blind and led to the remaining launchers being destroyed without firing. These figures point to an unprecedented situation in modern warfare. Throughout the 20th century, no major power had suffered such a large number of losses from its most advanced air defense systems in such a short period of time. The fact that these losses occurred in a region like Crimea, which Russia claims to protect with its densest air defense umbrella, completely shattered the S-400 myth. So how did Ukraine achieve this? This was not a victory of brute force, but of intellect and technology. Ukraine implemented a multi-layered strategy known as SEAD/DEAD, or Suppression of Enemy Air Defenses and Destruction. This strategy worked like a deadly symphony. First, cheap and deceptive targets, i.e. decoy drones, were sent to the front line. The powerful radars of the S-400s had to activate, i.e. turn on their lights, to detect these fake targets. However, the moment a radar activates, it also reveals its own position. It was precisely at this moment that surveillance drones such as the Bayraktar TB2 or satellite intelligence detected the exact location of these radars. In the second phase, long-range high-precision missiles supplied by the West were fired at these detected locations. US-made ATACMS ballistic missiles and British-French-made Storm Shadow/SCALP cruise missiles attacked the heart of the S-400 batteries, namely their command centers and expensive radars, with surgical precision. These attacks turned the S-400's greatest strength, its long-range detection capability, into its greatest weakness. The Kremlin painfully realized that its own production capacity was insufficient to stop this trend. This helplessness pushed Moscow to knock on Ankara's door. At first glance, Russia's withdrawal of 2 S-400 battalions from Turkey may seem like a disaster for Ukraine. This would mean Russia patching up its perforated air defense shield, at least to some extent. However, looking at the chessboard from a broader perspective, this move actually has the potential to turn into a long-term, revolutionary strategic victory for both Turkey and Ukraine. This is a geopolitical irony in which Putin, through his own desperation, unwittingly strengthens his greatest rivals. For Ankara, this situation is, in the truest sense of the word, a golden opportunity. First and foremost, Turkey is relieved of a political burden that has been weighing on it for years. Let's not forget that these S-400s in Turkey's possession were never fully activated. The systems were brought to Ankara after delivery, and test firings were conducted. However, they were neither integrated into NATO's command and control infrastructure, nor put into continuous operational service. The most fundamental reason for this was that these systems were a source of political crisis from the outset. Washington defined the purchase of the S-400s as contrary to the spirit of alliance, and imposed sanctions on Turkey under KAATSA. These sanctions not only targeted the defense industry and certain officials, but also completely ended Turkey's participation in the prestigious F-35 program. This meant a heavy cost for Ankara, not only militarily, but also diplomatically and economically. Turkey was removed from the production chain of the F-35s, for which it had paid billions of dollars, lost the chance to own these aircraft, and faced a long-term erosion of trust in Western capitals. By returning these idle assets to their owner at a price close to their purchase price, the Ankara government can both rid itself of this political baggage and put a significant amount of cash into its coffers. So, what can be done with this money? This is where the story turns into a victory for Ukraine as well. Ankara had paid approximately $2.5 billion for the S-400 systems. Now it can demand more from Moscow. This money will be rocket fuel that directly ignites the most ambitious projects of Turkey's national defense industry. At the forefront of these projects is Turkey's fifth-generation stealth fighter jet, KAAN. KAAN is not just an aircraft. It is the most concrete symbol of Turkey's strategic independence and its claim to be a global power. With its low visibility features, supercruise capability, advanced avionics, and capacity to carry domestic ammunition, KAAN will elevate the Turkish Air Force to the world's elite league upon completion. However, developing such a revolutionary project and moving it into mass production requires enormous funding. The billions of dollars coming from the S-400s could bring the KAAN project's timeline forward by years, accelerating the most costly stages, such as engine development and mass production. Turkey will fill the void created by the loss of the F-35 project due to a weapon it acquired from Russia, with its own national aircraft, financed thanks to Russia's helplessness. This is a masterclass in strategic maneuvering. On the other hand, the most surprising and perhaps most ironic part of this equation is Ukraine's gain. Yes, in the short term, Russia will get 2 S-400 batteries back and will have strengthened its inventory on paper. However, this is no longer a factor of fear for Ukraine, because Kiev has repeatedly tested, developed, and perfected all methods of destroying the radars, command centers, and launchers of the S-400s over the past 2 years. Eliminating these systems is no longer a massive strategic problem for the Ukrainian army. It has become a manageable tactical task. The real gain is on a much broader plane than the battlefield, in the realm of strategic partnerships and long-term advantages. This agreement takes the already strong Turkey-Ukraine strategic partnership, which has existed since the first days of the war, to a new level. The legend created by Bayraktar TB2 drones in Ukrainian skies, the Baykar factory established in Kiev, and the construction of Turkish MILGEM corvettes for the Ukrainian Navy had already tied the military destinies of the two countries together. However, Ankara's sale of its S-400s back to Russia is transforming this relationship into an even more geopolitical alliance. It is quite realistic to imagine that part of the proceeds from this sale will be transferred to joint defense projects with Ukraine. For example, the capacity of the Baykar factory in Ukraine could be increased, and joint production and technology sharing could be accelerated in the new generation Akinci UAV and Kizil Elma jet UAV programs. In fact, the transfer of Turkey's ammunition, sensor, and radar technologies to Ukraine could take Kiev's air defense integration. However, the real big prize for Ukraine is hidden at the end of this story: the KAAN fighter jets. Turkey's national fifth-generation fighter jet project, KAAN, could gain momentum thanks to this sale. Ankara could use the revenue to finance engine integration, AESA radar testing, and serial production lines. Thus, KAAN could enter service much earlier than planned. In this case, Ukraine could be one of KAAN's first export customers. This possibility is no longer a distant fantasy, but an increasingly realistic option, both militarily and politically. The fifth-generation stealth jets entering the Ukrainian Air Force's inventory will not only change the air superiority equation, but also dramatically affect the overall course of the war. Because KAAN was designed as a platform capable of overcoming even Russian systems like the S-400, with its low radar signature, advanced electronic warfare capabilities, and network-centric warfare abilities. The presence of these aircraft patrolling Ukrainian skies would constantly threaten Russia's air bases in Crimea, supply lines in Donbass, and even strategic targets within Russia itself. In such a scenario, the Kremlin would lose its superiority not only on the ground, but also in the airspace. The possibility of Ukraine establishing permanent air superiority over Crimea and Donbass would become a real nightmare for Moscow. And the most ironic part, the financing of this nightmare would, indirectly, come from Russia's own coffers. As the Kremlin pays Turkey in desperation, it will be unable to prevent that money from being used for projects that increase Ukraine's warfighting capacity. This is not only a military moment, but a historical moment of revenge. Russia will have handed Ukraine the deadliest card of the 21st century with its own hands. Thank you for watching.